Welcome to Sage Audio. Today let's talk about how to mix 808. But first, if you have a mix that you need mastered, send it to us to receive a free mastered sample of it with the link in the description. The layers of an 808. Before we look at mixing our 808 with other instruments, I think it's important to understand what makes up an 808. This way we know the frequencies that it occupies and how different elements affect the sound. An 808 is made up of a kick sample mixed with a processed sine, saw, or triangle wave, both of which are then collectively processed with harmonics and subharmonics to fill out the sound. These layers are then processed with compression, distortion, perhaps clipping, depending on the desired sound. Now, in the next few chapters, we'll make an 808 layer by layer to show how they work together. The process is going to be an antiquated one for sure, since there are definitely better ways to do this now, but it's going to show every step a bit clearer. Let's take a listen to what it's going to sound like when it's finished. Start with a kick sample. When we're making an 808, we want to start with a kick sample. Now this kick sample should have some of the elements that we want, like punchiness or maybe a quick and sharp transient, but this could be processed later on. With automation, I'll affect the ADSR of this kick sample. I could make it smoother by fading the sample in, or keep the transient and have the sample fall off sharply. It's really up to you what you're trying to create. So let's take a listen to our kick sample and alter the ADSR with automation to understand how it changes the sound. If you're enjoying the video, hit the like button and subscribe if you haven't already. It's free and it helps us bring you more videos. Layering sine, saw, or triangle wave. Next, I'm going to use a test oscillator to create a waveform. I'll use a sine wave and set it to 55 Hz since this is an A1 note. Now setting this frequency to an actual note is important later on when we use frequency tracking to create various notes. After bouncing out our section of the sine wave, I'll import it back into the session and again, use automation to change its ADSR. This layer is usually responsible for the sustain of an 808, so let's keep that in mind when we shape it. Additionally, I'll add some distortion to my sine wave to give it a more distinct tone. Let's take a listen to our kick and this sine wave combined and notice how we're getting closer to the sound of an 808. Introducing harmonics and a subharmonic. Next, we want to collectively process the kick sample and our sine wave, so I'll change their outputs to a bus on which I'll use max bass and low air to generate both harmonics and a subharmonic. The harmonics help the listeners to hear it on smaller speakers, and the sub makes it more impressive. Let's take a listen, first without these two processors, and then with them enabled. Compression, distortion, and clipping on an 808. Lastly, we want to use compression and distortion in parallel to amplify quieter details of the signal, as well as some saturation to give it character. Since it's in parallel, I'll use the fader to adjust how much is included. Additionally, we could introduce clipping, which I'm going to add to the stereo output. Now, if you want, you could also add an EQ to the output to isolate the lows or maybe just reshape the overall sound. So let's take a listen to each layer being added in one by one, starting with just the kick and ending with the finished sound. Creating room for an 808 with EQ. Now that we've made an 808 and understand just about all of the factors that go into it, let's consider how to mix it in with other instruments. For example, let's say we have an 808 and a bass synth that are overlapping, and we want the 808 to cut through. First, we'll look at the frequency response of the 808 and observe the fundamentals or lowest notes. Then, we'll attenuate these frequencies on the bass synth by a few dB. Now ideally, the composer of the track would have put the synth an octave up, but if it's clashing with the 808, this is a good solution. Let's take a listen. Today's video is brought to you by Musia, a chord and melody generator that makes creating music and learning new chords incredibly easy. The auto chord feature lets you quickly create chords within a specific key, then transpose them if you need to. The chords it generates always have a very musical progression, and the plugin even lets you switch the genre. Also, you can drag and drop the MIDI that Musica creates into your DAW, meaning you aren't limited to any particular sound. Right now, they're having a 30-day free trial, so check that out using the link in the description. Adding clarity to 808 with EQ, then Exciter. If we want our 808 to play a more prominent role in the mix, we could use an EQ to amplify the higher frequencies with a bell in the high mids, and then use a high shelf. Let's follow this with a Exciter or a high frequency saturator. I'll use a frequency-specific saturation plugin and isolate the effect to just the high frequencies. Let's take a listen and notice how the 808 cuts through more. If you're enjoying the channel, use the search box to watch more of our videos. Maximizing an 808's detail. Upward compression or maximization are great effects to use on an 808. I'll use the Waves MV2 and increase the low-level slider to compress and amplify quieter parts of the signal. We could also use the Sonix Oxford Inflator or any compressor that lets us maximize the signal. Let's take a listen first to the MV2 and then switch it over to the inflator to compare the two. Can I use reverb on an 808? Reverb on an 808 is usually considered a mistake, but if used sparingly, it can work well at filling out the sound. I'll use a frequency-specific reverb and utilize very short settings. Then I'll isolate the reflections to the low frequencies, add some mild modulation, and blend in the effect. Now I can understand why people avoid this, but let's take a listen and notice how it creates a fuller low end. How to keep my 808 focused. 808s are typically best when kept focused. Now by this I mean that the majority of the signal is kept to the mid image with only a small portion allocated to the side image. If the 808 has too much signal on the side, we could use a mid-side EQ. I'll create a high-pass filter and place it on the side image, which means that everything below the cut is going to be made mono. So if you're using an 808 that someone else created and is too wide or unfocused, you can try this out with a mid-side EQ. If you have a mix that you need mastered, send it to us to receive a free mastered sample of it with the link in the description. Thank you so much for watching.